Record to the cloud. All right. We are recording. I got the updated Zoom version, business version. So yeah, I didn't realize that it didn't record up to the cloud before.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, unless you bought the updated version. So I got Nick Mitra from Just Roll, Tim Crater, Bruno Bastos, a couple buddies in Europe, stuff like that. So started lining them up. But first is my man Justin Rader.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Let me just do a backup here just in case. Just in case we lose audio. I don't want to lose audio like we did before.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, so we are good to go. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, you too. I'm getting a little stir crazy, but
That's the truth.
What are you doing to pass the time during this quarantine?
Man, doing a lot of things. I mean, of course, like, common chores, but just some things I'm doing, like, that, a lot of times I don't really have, time to do, is doing a lot more reading and, especially leadership books. And I've been studying, I'm really bad about this actually, but I actually have, some jujitsu instructionals that I'm following. And so I want to, give a big shout out to the new Modern 50/50, which is Ryan Hall's new instructional. And you can find it on ryanhallonline.com. And man, it has been absolutely awesome. So getting to learn a lot, like for me, the leg lock game was not something I ever really focused on, mainly because of the rules of a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments, nowadays, especially considering the IBJJF. They're not very leg lock friendly. And so it was not something I focused on much. So that's been a lot of what I've been doing in my my spare time. Of course, still running virtual classes as best we can on Zoom, and staying up to date and in touch with all our students. But yeah, I mean, other than reading leadership books and learning from Ryan Hall's online system, that's been about it.
Yeah, I actually just watched a couple of YouTube videos of Ryan Hall. I think it's from his online. He has like 3 videos on one like random YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 attack. I forget what the other ones were, but the 50-50 rotation that he does and lands in is a locked finish. It's not like we're on our butts, on our back, and we're both
backside.
Say again?
Oh, I think he calls. Are you talking about the backside 50-50?
Where he spins underneath and it's like your track stance running away.
Yeah, yeah.
The way that leg is locked is different than if we're both sitting on our butts and we can both attack the feet.
Correct.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. The leg lock game is run wild. I mean, if you look at just the approaches, you've got Ryan Hall and his style, whatever you want to call it, right? Lachlan Giles is just smashed with his style. You got the traditional straightforward attacks, and then you have the, I guess you could say, like the Danaher Death Squad style.
Yeah.
And so even within leg locks, there's different ways to go at it. There's different approaches. It's absolutely amazing. I think there's one part of the evolution that's left, and that is spider guard combined with leg locks.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Which I think you might see that evolution if the IBJJF allowed, was a little bit more cool with leg locks and reaping and such.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could possibly see them making it legal later on at black belt in NoGi. I don't know if they'll ever do reaping and hooking and stuff like that in the gi.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm a Braulio Estima and Homolo fan. And both of those guys will use the spider guard to get people up and elevated on their feet and then rotate under to land knee bars and foot locks and stuff. So, like, man, if that, maybe if we had, like, worm guard heel hooks, that would be the end all be all, right?
Get Keenan on that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got some kind of funky tricks doing that. That's awesome. So we had talked before, and you had won, speaking of AGF, you had won NoGi Worlds a couple times and then placed silver a couple times, and then bronze at ADCC. Was that in China?
Yeah, that was the one in Beijing.
At least it wasn't in Wuhan, okay?
Right?
But tell us a little bit about some of your top experiences as a competitor. You know, obviously, you know, not just China, but you've traveled and competed, and being from Oklahoma City in the beginning, especially in those years, you had to definitely travel to go.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about memorable moments or some, you know, some cool traveling or memorable moments that you got competing at those levels.
Yeah. You know, I'll back up even a little bit further just to give a little bit of my history. I think most everyone is, you know, fairly familiar with it. But, you know, I started wrestling and taekwondo when I was 4. And my dad, he sought out, you know, the highest, most accomplished and incredible instructors that he could. And so I started wrestling at age 4, and but I did that the wrestling taekwondo combination for almost 10 years. I also did about 5.5 years of Kyokushin karate in there as well. So I hold a junior black, or that was as far as I made it in taekwondo before I stopped taekwondo. I got a brown belt in Kyokushin karate as well, and then I started training jiu-jitsu when I was about 12 years old, and that was back in about 1998 was when I started training jiu-jitsu, and you know, we didn't have any idea what it was. In fact, one of the fathers of the wrestling team I was on, one of the Little League wrestling teams, knew that I was, you know, just like knew me and my dad were, you know, really big into that martial arts thing, and he happened to drive by a place that said jiu-jitsu, and so we went and checked it out. And so I wrestled all through high school. And there's a good, you know, life lesson, interesting topic, but I which we can get to later. I actually decided not to wrestle in college, which a lot of people like. I get mistaked for that a lot. A lot of people thought I wrestled in college, and I just stuck with doing jiu-jitsu at that point in time, and I started fighting professional mixed martial arts. Gosh, man, when was that? So let's see, that was, I believe, 2014. Yeah, so just a couple months after Beijing. And you know, so I did that for about 5.5 years, and so I was able to make it. I was an Oklahoma high school state runner-up in back in 2005 in wrestling, and then I won some bigger things in jiu-jitsu. I was a purple belt world champion in 2007, and a brown belt NoGi world champion in 2009. And then I was a black belt world champion in 2010 and 2013. And that was also the same year, like I did that a couple months after getting a bronze at ADCC. And so I had a couple of big memorable moments, you know, along the way. And the first one that I had actually happened in high school. You know, where it was my first big breakthrough, mindset wise. My biggest, you know, I mean, I got started at such a young age. I had, you know, skills and abilities and techniques for days, but you know, being a natural introvert and someone who was so afraid of confrontation at a very young age took me a long time to get over that. And so it wasn't until I started wrestling for my wrestling coach, Andy Howington. I wrestled for him for 7-8 years between middle school and high school out here at the Deer Creek High School in Edmond, Oklahoma. And he was the one who really helped me through that. And my first big breakthrough, I had a terrible freshman year where I think I finished, like, in high school wrestling, I think I finished with like a 500 record, like 6-6 or something like that. It was terrible. It was not very good. And I just, you know, wasn't ready here. It wasn't that I wasn't ready skill wise. I just wasn't ready here. And, you know, my sophomore year started to look a lot like that, where I went in preseason, I went 8-7. You know, it's like, oh, you know, this is starting to look exactly like, you know, my freshman year. And all of a sudden, something just clicked, and I stopped worrying about, you know, what everyone was going to say, you know, what everyone was going to think of me. And I just kind of started to block everything out. And I really started wrestling with this mindset, you know, of just like, you know what, no matter what happens, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to give my very best. I'm going to play as smart as I can. And I'm just never going to quit going forward. If I get beat, I can guarantee 2 things. All right. that person will never, ever want to face me again. And I will continue to close the gap. If I do get beat, like, if I have to, wrestle them over and over again, I'm going to continue to close that gap each and every single time. And when I started wrestling with that, mindset of like, what, screw what everyone else thinks, I started to have a lot more success. And so I wrestled a kid who was ranked number 1 in the class above ours. So we were a school class of 3A back then, Deer Creek was, and I was wrestling this kid from Chickasha, and they were 4A, and he was ranked number 1. And no one knew who I was in the state of Oklahoma. And in one ugly brawl of a match, that was, not a score that was not reminiscent of a high level match either. I beat him 13-11. And, from that point on, like the rest of the year was kind of funny. I went to every single tournament the rest of the year, and I got the automatic number 1 seed at every tournament. It was funny. My coaches, they came out and they told me, we went to a tournament that weekend that I beat him. And they were like, all right, so they're in the coaches seating meeting, and they're like, okay, who do we have, who wants to nominate for number 1 seed? And there was this guy and this guy and this guy. Their coaches raised their hand or whatnot. And then my coaches raised our hand, and they were like, well, who is this guy? What has he done? And they're like, well, so they were like, they went through everyone's accomplishments, and they got to us. They're like, well, who is he and what's he done? And they were like, well, our guy beat Jeremy Spoon just like 5 days ago or 4 days ago. And every coach in the entire place turned around and looked at my coach and was like, you guys are lying, and it was funny. Then they were like, well, check the records then. And from that moment on, every tournament the rest of the year, I got the automatic number 1 seed, and went nearly undefeated all the way up through the state tournament, which was my first time wrestling in the state tournament. And again, it was really more of an up here kind of thing. Like I had every, I had the ability to have placed that year, but it didn't happen. So probably the next big breakthrough that I had was winning the Pan Ams in 2007, the same year that I won the Purple Belt Worlds. I won the Purple Belt Pan Ams, and I had a couple of really tough matches back.
You talking gi?
Yeah, in the gi. Thank you. The gi Pan Ams in 2007. I faced Zach Maxwell and JT Torres back to back in the semifinals and the finals. And I had 2 matches before that. And then I faced Zach Maxwell and JT Torres back to back. And I had been trying for 5 years to get that Pan Am gold. First in the juvenile division a couple of years. I got 1 silver medal. Then I entered the adult division a year early, just because, why not? I was, more interested in winning an adult Pan Am title than a juvenile title. And I got 3rd out of 67 guys in a bracket that Kyron Gracie won. And then I took a year off for senior nationals wrestling, because that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, which I didn't do very well at, unfortunately. And then I finally won that tournament. So that was another really big breakthrough for me.
You were purple belt. How old were you when you were purple?
I was a purple belt. I got my purple belt in 2006, so I was 20. I was 20 years old. Yeah.
So some of this, because your tribute to some of your mental gap that you closed from that wrestling coach and whatnot. Do you think that you got over, quote unquote, or learned how to handle some of that stress, however you want to say it, and then you got into the higher ranks of jiu-jitsu? Do you think that helped you at that point? I mean, you had kind of checked that off the box, I guess, huh?
Yeah, 100%. When I graduated, and like I said, there's a fun story, a good life lesson of why I decided not to wrestle in college. But I'd really gotten to that point where it was just like, I really just stopped being afraid of the pressure, and I say that it's not like there weren't times, even in, my jiu-jitsu career, as I was moving up in levels, it's not that there was just like, I was just like, oh, one time, check that off the box, never afraid ever again, as you face new people, and you work your way up the ranks, and you're like competing against higher and higher level people or whatnot, like, that whole thing, it's kind of like, it's never, there were definitely times where I definitely relapsed, as well. Like there were times, like I lost some matches at purple belt that I just still to this day can't even believe that I lost. However, when it came down to, winning the nationals, Pan Ams, and worlds, I got the job done on those days,
Right.
So, that's kind of how that turned out. And then, probably the next big breakthrough I had was winning my first black belt world title, against a guy who'd been in the finals, gi and no-gi, a couple of times, named Carlos Holanda Vieira. And man, super tough guard, very, you know, hard to pass. But I was, you know, like he even like the way he was wrapping up my leg, almost like a like almost trying for like an arm calf slicer or whatnot. You know, it was something I had never seen before. As I'm out there in the World Championship finals, and you know, I was very happy with my mental mindset and the ability to remain calm, just kind of like figure my way through it and stay very patient during a match. You know, one that I thought I was winning the entire time, even though I was losing on the scorecards. And I watched that match to this day, and I'm just like, I don't know how they scored it, you know, the way they did, up to the point where, you know, I finally won a ref's decision. And then, you know, probably the next big breakthrough match that I had was in 2013 at the ADCC World Championships, where you know, I you know, you can say whatever you want. I didn't necessarily agree that it should have been a first round matchup, but I faced Augusto Mendez, the one they called Tanquinho, in the very first round. And I remember thinking, like, you know, and like I was just talking about, you know, I almost played head games with myself there, you know, because I was just like, man, like, you know, because his previous 2 wins were at the IBJJF Gi World, I believe, where he beat, you know, Cobrinha and Rafa Mendes back to back. And now I've got to go against him in the first round at ADCC. And it was just like, man, like, you know, why couldn't I face one of these, like, you know, other guys first round or whatnot, you know?
How did you beat Taquinho?
By decision after 20 minutes, scoreless. And, you know, the ADCC, I mean, all tournaments are like, you know, you really, you know, play the strategy, play the rules, you know, do the very best you can. Like, the rules really, they really shape the way that you grapple and the strategy you enter with, because you don't want to, you know, enter to lose necessarily. So, but, you know, I remember, like, the first half being no points was, you know, definitely, you know, always something, you know, it was the real most difficult part of ADCC for me. But, you know, they gauge the winner by, you know, the very last overtime. That's all that they look at. Or as I understand the rules, it's all they look at. So I remember going to that last overtime, you know, like, hey, I want to really bully this guy. I want to push him all over the place. You know, I got a couple of near takedowns, and, you know, was able to get the decision, you know, after 20 minutes with one of the best grapplers in the world.
For sure. I mean, he just won 2019 ADCC.
Yeah.
And he's always been a stud. Of all people, I would say, in your weight class, it's a good win because he's also, like, stylistically he's hard to sleep. He's a top player. He's not a typical, you know, guard player. And so it's going to be a wrestling match, you know,
Which I always welcomed those.
Yeah, for sure. But it's going to be a grinder, you know. That's awesome. And you got through that match. Who'd you face next?
I faced Nicolas Reiner from France.
Yeah.
Really tough, solid dude. I faced Cobrinha in the finals in a super tough match. The best I ever did against him. You know, I lost 2-0 in that match. He was able to sweep me just long enough to keep me down and score his points. And so I lost 2-0 to Cobrinha. And then I faced Joao Miao in the third place match, in another really crazy match where it was just like, man, stylistically, you know, like, me and Tanquinho are kind of similar. You know, me and Joao Miao are polar opposites.
Yeah, sure. How did it? Let's back up just a little bit though, because I talked to Nicolas Reiner with AGF in Europe, and then me teaching a ton in Europe. I've talked to him before.
Oh yeah.
How did that match go with him?
I remember feeling really good, very confident in that match. It was very guillotine heavy, used my wrestling. I was on top, you know, the entire time. You know, so it was I can't remember what the final score was. I think it was like 4 or 5-0. But it was a decision victory. So very, very tough guy. There was one time he had me, almost had me in a guillotine as well. So very, very tough guy.
Awesome. And I've known, like you talked before, because like I've mentioned you before, I'm a truck and calf slicer fan. And yeah, and you were doing that at the black belt level, brown belt level, you know, 2010, and you know, that kind of time frame I started noticing. And you started going for that, and you go super fast, super strong. Do you have an intention to go get that, or is that an opportunity type catch that you go for? Do you intentionally want to go hunt that submission or position?
And the way that I enter, matches or whatnot, like you can never know exactly what's going to happen. What I try to do, well, one of the biggest things that gives me such a huge advantage is like I'm very, very comfortable on the feet. And when we think about, jiu-jitsu and submission grappling, NoGi jiu-jitsu, whatever you want to call it or whatnot, like, jiu-jitsu has a real, it's a ground fighting art, yet we still start, all tournaments and all grappling matches on the feet, and so that position, from my wrestling background is honestly where I'm most comfortable. And almost always, I mean, probably 9.9 times out of 10 in my career, I had the advantage on the feet. So I got to start every match, maybe with not like an actual, score advantage or whatnot, but I got to start every match with an advantage, which was, huge for me, especially if I could get that first takedown and 2 points. So basically what and the way that I approached the rest of the game, something my wrestling coach used to tell me was, don't give anything up and take everything they give you. Well, the movements that I would make, and the moves that I would do, I try to funnel you down a path where like your most common reaction is, either A or B. And I know how to capitalize off both 2 or 3 moves in advance, So is it something that I necessarily like I don't try to force anything. I try to just take what people give me based on the movements and the movement patterns of, the positions that I try to put them in. And so, was it one of my favorite moves? Oh, absolutely. I got it a lot. I think mainly because it's, somewhat, especially in the IBJJF, it's somewhat unorthodox. You don't see a lot of, I won plenty. I won plenty of like IBJJF open tournaments all by calf slicer, which is just not the most common thing that you see, which is why I think it worked really well for me. I think a lot of people I have plenty of matches and finishes where I would get into that position, and it was just like people just didn't seem like they realized the danger that they were in, and it made it so easy to just once I snagged that foot, and I always had a pretty good affinity for finding it as well. But it was all the moves that I did, leading up to that, that really gave it to me. I had, a lot of people, I was also kind of known for having a really good, strong guillotine. And I could, people had to respect my guillotine first. And so it really opened up, a lot of time. Like I said, the either you're going to go this way, most common reaction, or you're not, and you're going to give me this path now. So like a lot of people, really respected my front headlock and my guillotine, that they focused so much on that it really opened up the route of just spinning around and, sliding my leg into the position that's, very popular, known as the truck, and just, sliding right into my calf slicer. And even if people tried to roll to guard, I was still able to control the hips and just slide right in and jump right into it. So it really takes, your other option is to, basically just sit there and, let me get all the way around behind a turtle, which is not an advantageous position for you. So I really just tried to, funnel people and force them into bad ways where, their 2 or 3 most common reactions were all bad pathways for them. And so it was basically pick your poison.
Yeah, for sure. And that's always a good mentality in jiu-jitsu, forcing them into that funnel. That's awesome. And the reason I really liked it is because, like I said, I just personally, on a personal level, I really like that. I got a single hook. They leads to the twister, leads to the back. They get worried about the second hook, so you can attack the calf slicer or the banana split. Are you banana split guy at all, or you just go for the calf slicer?
I think the banana split is great. I think in my weight class, I think the banana split is has a lot more variation percentage-wise of people you'll be able to tap with it and people you won't be able to tap with it. Whereas I think the calf slicer has less of that percentage, and a greater percentage of people I'm going to tap with the calf slicer as opposed to not. Whereas as flexible as he is, if I had been able to really get that position on someone like Joao Miao, for example, I don't think anywhere in the world would I have tapped him with a banana split. but I think my chances are far greater attacking the calf slicer of, you know, getting him to, or getting to a submission finish there or whatnot. So I think just from my viewpoint, you know, I feel like the calf slicer is stronger and has a more common or higher percentage of finish rate as opposed to the banana splits, which is quite a bit more variable.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I always tell people lighter weight classes are more flexible. There's flexible guys in the heavier weight class, so I can land it more being 210. But I tell people, you know, if they've done karate for a long time, or if they're, you know, if it's a 6-minute match and you're 5 minutes in and they're warmed up, you know, or if you're a couple matches in and they're warmed up, you know, their muscles are a little bit more loose. It's harder to catch the banana splits. The calf slicer always threatens to break, though.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So let's hear a little bit about Legacy Martial Arts, your school that you got going on. You know, as a director at AGF, I see your kids out there. You know, the morning of we run a tournament. You guys are in uniform, and what I mean by in uniform is not just that we're wearing our rash guards and gis. They're all in the same uniform. They're all in there, whether that's their competition uniform or if that's their daily attire. They're there. They look like a team. They're working out together. You got some junior leaders that are leading the pack, and you're running around with a little bit of coffee while they're doing that.
Yeah.
Looks like a well-organized machine you got going on. Tell us a little bit about the school.
Yes, absolutely. You know, well, first, you know, we opened up here in Edmond, Oklahoma, and you know, Legacy was an idea that was born to me. You know, like one of my dreams was always to own my own martial arts school, and I thought, you know, long and hard about what I would call it. And it was just like, you know, well, what's something that, you know, what's a very powerful word that everyone can get behind, everyone in the entire world. You know, we all leave a legacy, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And fewer of us leave a legacy on purpose. And so by calling it Legacy, it's really, you know, a constant reminder and call to action to all of our students that each and every single decision that you make each and every single day, you know, you're writing your legacy with each one of those. And so it's something very important that I want everyone to, you know, start to really, you know, take to heart and really think about. Of course, as we go up in ages, you know, it takes on a more serious, you know, aspect and tone. Like I don't preach a lot to the little kids who are like 4 and 5 years old, as much about, you know, their legacy, but at the very least, they're on some level getting exposed to it, you know, like they know that their team is, you know, Legacy Martial Arts, and one day they're going to ask and or wonder, why is it called that? And that will be the, you know, perfect opportunity moment to lead in, and that, hey, now they're ready for that kind of education. And, you know, so here's why, and I get a chance to, you know, explain it to them. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So very, you know, I was always very conscious of the language that we used. And so, like I said, it was an idea that was born to me in 2013. And I was like, that I think would be like, that is exactly, you know, what the kind of impact that I want to make with martial arts, you know. And
so not a fan of like Justin Rader Jiu-Jitsu then.
No, and not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, for me personally, it was like, you know, it all depends on what your goal is or whatnot. My goal, you know, as a martial arts academy is to make an impact, not just on our students, but even in the community where we're based out of. You know, like to me, if I had called it, you know, Rader Jiu-Jitsu or something like that, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, to me, you know, I personally felt like that, you know, was, you know, maybe a bit egocentric, and that's not like I wanted to create something where, especially in our youth, that they would have a chance. You know, you talked about it a moment ago, some of my junior leaders, you know, have the chance to really step up and lead, you know, and I don't think, you know, that in a lot of walks, you know, the way that they live their lives, I don't think that they're really given many opportunities to, you know, step up and actually lead, and even lead people, you know, of their peers and or people even older and higher ranking of them, you know. And so that brings me to, you know, kind of the next point, you know, which is like, okay, what's going to be our mission statement, which was, the next point. It was like, so our mission statement here at Legacy is to train, inspire, and empower people to become others-focused leaders in the community through martial arts. And I don't think that there's anything that teaches leadership greater, than martial arts, because, martial arts, as much as it is, a team sport, it also has a very, great, aspect of like, personal development as well. And it's like, of course, on some level, like you have to build up your own skills or whatnot, but why, what's the why behind we're doing this? The why is that we are building ourselves up so that we can help other people. It's not so that, like we can gain, fame or fortune or anything out of it or whatnot. In fact, the greatest fortune, there's nothing more fulfilling than helping other people, which was why I chose to use the words, I didn't just use the word leader. I used the word, the qualifier, others focused leaders. I want them to be thinking constantly outside of themselves. And I tell them this all the time. So like when I started thinking about, naming my kids' program, there are a lot of things, that I could have used that, different people use. And again, nothing wrong with any of it. It's all in, I think, in good intention, but, they'll call their programs like, the little dragons or little ninjas, which sounds really cool. But I chose to call mine the leaders program. So we have a little leaders program, a junior leaders program, and a teen leaders program. And, so like that way they're constantly hearing like, well, what does it mean to be a leader? And again, when they're mature enough and they start asking questions, because kids are not dumb, kids pick up on a lot more than we really do give them credit for. At some point in time, they're really going to like wonder why. And that will be the point in time where right now, with as small as we are, I do most of that and handle most of that. But the idea and the goal is to one day, like some of my junior leaders, they're like, once we get to a certain point capacity wise, they're like, I'm not going to have the individual attention to every one single student or whatnot. And they're going to have to do for them what I'm doing for them now. And that's how, build and grow or whatnot. And they're going to have those moments and opportunity, which will greatly empower them to impact others' lives. And then those lives will be impacted and they're going to turn around and do the same thing. This is going to be how we leave our legacy, which then drove me, to our mission statement. Legacy, like I said, was, a way of saying what we will all leave behind. And this is the lesson that I tell them. And, we're going to, be very, very passionate about continuing to build the best versions of our students to become others-focused leaders. And in this way, we will impact not just them, not just their families, all right, but our entire community. And so that's kind of, like, think of a imagine a community, led by, these, these young, youthful, powerful, passionate, others-focused leaders who are empowered with the confidence that martial arts brings. Because I don't believe any other sport out there empowers someone's confidence and self-esteem the same way that martial arts does. And so you could just picture like what our community might look like, when we have, especially youthful leaders who are out there ready to take charge, and they're gonna see a need and they're gonna be like, you know what? I can meet that need. I feel passionate about that. Like, let's go accomplish this. And, man, if you have a community full of people like that, there's no telling what you can accomplish. And I build that through telling them, constantly, especially in our juniors and teens classes, I tell them, look left and look right. Like, when you walk in this door, your goal and your mindset should be like, man, like one of the questions you should ask yourself is, I wonder who's going to be my partner today. And I wonder how much I'm going to be able to pour into them and help them. Because if you come in and you ask the question, hey, I'm coming into, such and such martial arts place, like I want to get everything out of it that I can for me. Well, you have one person looking out for you then. But if you come in and you're like, who can I pour into today? Who am I going to be blessed with or honored with being their partner? And how can I make them better or whatnot? Well, then you go in for, like, let's say your class is, 20 kids, then you have 19 people looking out for you. All right. As opposed to just one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And speaking of youth going out and being changed by the martial arts, you do hear that sometimes from wrestling, and a lot of wrestlers speak about, how the mentality of wrestling helps them in life. And like, what do you think the difference between the mentality of wrestling and the mentality of martial arts is?
In a lot of ways or whatnot, I don't think that there really is too much of a difference. In fact, you were talking about it before about, seeing our team and the impact that they're making at the AGF tournaments. I run this team, and I always have. But I run this team the same way my wrestling coach, Andy Howington, ran my wrestling team. We were always the first to show up at a tournament. We were always the first to be ready, to be on the mats, warming up. We were always there. Like we didn't just be, if you got beat out, you wouldn't have any more matches the rest of the day, or you were done, then you were encouraged, to stay. I mean, of course, different situations or whatnot, but our team will stay. When my little kids are done, they could leave, they absolutely could or whatnot, but they stay, they watch, they coach, they cheer on, all the juniors and teens and those that are older or whatnot. And that just continues to help promote the team aspect, which is, the same approach that my wrestling coach, like I said, Andy Howington took. And, I don't think, honestly, having done both for so very long, I don't think that the two mentalities are different. I think that there are somewhat different approaches, because the arts are different and the rules are different. I personally, having done both for, as long as I did, I do, like you hear the saying, once you've wrestled, everything in life is easy, and I 100% think that's true. And what I'm about to say is not a statement, that's one, not an absolute statement. It's not an across the board statement, and what I'm about to say is neither that either, but I believe wrestling to be a tougher sport. And I believe jiu-jitsu to be a more difficult sport, so wrestling is tougher because the rules make it that way. You have a really short 2-minute burst, and then there's a break and kind of a restart from a more neutral position of your choice. And then there's another 2-minute, but you get saved by time inside of 2 minutes. You don't have that luxury in grappling matches, and it doesn't need to be there, either in grappling matches, because it takes time to, develop patience and pressure and, to let some of these positions develop or whatnot, so the fact that jiu-jitsu is only one time period I actually like, especially for grappling, I think it's absolutely necessary, but wrestling is not like that, so in wrestling you have 3 different periods. And so because there is a break where you get to stop, you get a little bit more of a neutral, and or position, maybe slightly advantageous of your choice, but the other person's going to get his choice in the next period as well or whatnot. You have, more small bursts of action, quick break, small bursts of action, quick break or whatnot, so you need to be tougher and be a lot more physical and a lot more violent in those short bursts. Even if it does get you in a little bit of trouble, you're going to be saved by the clock very shortly afterwards or whatnot, which is not the case in jiu-jitsu. And because you can't pin someone in jiu-jitsu or grappling, and they are, allowed to fight off of their backs, it makes the game so much more complex. And it takes longer, in my opinion, to really understand and appreciate all that, jiu-jitsu and grappling has to offer. So those are kind of the two different mentalities, so I don't necessarily say one or that they're really all that. I mean, they are different or whatnot, but in the same way that it's, it's one-on-one, you're the only one out there, but you train with a team every single day. All of those things, are still the same. So, that's, that would be kind of my thoughts, on that, and then going back, to the whole leadership team thing or whatnot, this was something that my wrestling coach, did too. We on my wrestling team, every duel would have, a new, captain. They get to walk out, for that duel or whatnot, we had, senior leaders on the team that would, lead the team in warmups and such. And my team does the same thing, when we go to those tournaments, there's usually, a couple of, the people that everyone on the team is looking to, and I give them the opportunity to lead. And that all started, like this whole leadership thing started with a group of 8 kids, the very first leadership team that I ever built. And I want to give them a shout out real quick because they just never, ever quite got the credit that they deserved. But some of the kids that really changed my life were Sarah Lau, Jacob Absher, Josiah Absher, Blake Nance, Caleb Baker, Ian Foster, Blaze Withrow, and Hannah DeGan. And that was my first real leadership team that I built. And they're really the ones that really drove me down this path of, really trying to teach myself better leadership. You kind of have, that general sense of what the word means. And so, but I really asked myself, I got to a point one day where I was like, I don't feel like I'm really doing a very good job, leading. It's called a leadership team. And I don't know that I'm doing a good job. And so I just asked myself, I was like, well, define leader, and I was like, I mean, I kind of have a general sense of the word, but it was just like, beyond someone who just leads, like that's pretty basic. And I was like, well, I could. And I was like, okay, well, define leadership, put that into words. And I really couldn't, and that was a big red flag for me. And so one of my big leadership mentors had just started coming out with leadership podcasts on the first Thursday of every month. And his name was Craig Groeschel. So I started watching those, and they were super helpful and really, kind of like spelled out leadership and really helped me define it. And then in his first couple of podcasts, he kept referring to this guy named Simon Sinek. And so it was like the first time, okay, second time, by the third time he's mentioning and quoting this guy, I was like, I've got to, as much respect as I have for Craig Groeschel, like if he's giving this guy that many shout outs, like I got to go look this guy up. So I looked up a name, Simon Sinek, and I watched a talk of his called Leaders Eat Last. And it absolutely changed my life and perspective, and everything that I have, done since that day, has taken that trajectory. And really, really funny story behind that. Those 8 kids I just named, I showed that talk to them because it had just, spoken to me in such a way. And there was a really funny moment because there's a moment in the talk where he's talking about alphas, and the way that we kind of like as humans who are we're very hierarchical creatures, and how we judge alphas in different situations. And so I had set everything up. I had even bought them all lunch that day, brought it to the academy, sat them down, we're all watching it or whatnot. So he's talking about alphas, after I had gone out of my way to do all of this stuff for them. And it's, kind of funny, haha, but one of the boys leans back to the person who actually happened to be sitting in the middle, which is also just, further symbolic of the moment. But he turns and he just whispers out loud so we could all hear. He goes, "Sarah, you're the leader." You're the alpha. And we all kind of had a funny moment about that, but from that moment on, she kind of became the self-proclaimed leader of our new group. So a leadership team that I had built, I actually got to see one of my students surpass me on that totem pole, if you will, and it was so fitting, as passionate and driven as she was, and she was very good. She went, 3 or 4 years, competing in AGF and only lost 1 match. I mean, she dominated or whatnot, but she was also as deeply, competitive as she was, which inspired everyone. She was also super passionate about seeing her teammates do well. And so it just spoke volumes that it was funny, even amongst, our little team and these 8 kids, that they could even, see that. And so that was, really cool for me. And Simon Sinek says it all the time. He's like, if your relationship with your mentees is always mentor-mentee, then you have failed, So getting to see her rise up to the same level, because I still talk to all of these kids even today. And, a lot of them are about to graduate high school. Some are already in college. They're doing, absolutely awesome things with their lives. So it was really cool to see one of, my mentees, if you will, actually, be someone that I could, rely on and even ask questions at times, and even think of her and all of them as my mentors now as well.
So these kids that you're talking about, they started with you a while ago. Now they've gotten older, and have they moved on? Are they still training every day, being jiu-jitsu students, or like you said, have they gone off to college and stuff like that?
Couple have gone off to college. Jacob Absher, he's at Southwest, or I think SWASU is what it's called. He's at SWASU right now, and I think he's pursuing a degree right now in forensics or some sort of criminology degree. One of them, Blaze Withrow, he's a firefighter in Kingfisher, which is awesome. I've got a couple right now about to graduate high school. Caleb Baker and Blake Nance and Sarah Lau are all about to graduate high school, which is really cool to see. One of them is still training right now every single day, and is a big part of my new generation leadership team that I'm building now currently, and that's Josiah Absher. Ian Foster, he went on, he really pursued the wrestling route. He's wrestling for Edmond North high school team right now, and is really devoted to that. So it's really cool to see, like, you know, all the different things that they're doing now, and really see them grow up. And it's just like, man, like these kids that used to be my students are, you know, now, you know, pretty much on the brink of, you know, being my peers, which is really cool.
Now, just to retract and also kind of connect a question here, you said you intentionally did not wrestle in college. Was that to pursue jiu-jitsu?
Mm-hmm.
It was. Now, do you have kids that want to do the same thing now? Do you have kids that are wanting to be world champions and be groomed in that aspect?
That's hard to say in this new team that I'm building now. When you really think about, you know, everything that it takes, you know, to really pursue being a world champion. You know, as small as we are, you know, like Legacy is only, it's not even, we've only been open for a year and a half. You know, so especially with a lot of these kids, I think it's really hard to say, you know, that, you know, like, oh, their exact goal is, you know, to be a world champion. I think that, you know, happens definitely in different, you know, phases and steps or whatnot, you know? So I don't know that I have anyone necessarily, like, you know, that, you know, is like really come forward and just been like, you know, hey, that's what I want to do. And that's, you know, the goal that I want to pursue. You know, like I stopped wrestling in high school and pursued only jiu-jitsu, just really only because, like, I just felt like I had, you know, some bigger wins, that I was a little bit more successful in jiu-jitsu than I was in wrestling. So when I like, I never won a state title in wrestling. The best I ever did, I was a 2-time placer, 1-time runner-up. My senior year, I got second. And I just didn't believe in myself once again, that like I had what it took to wrestle in college, because I never won a state title. And that was, it once again is a lesson here, where it was just another moment where I wasn't believing in myself. And I watched kids that I was, you know, very close with in high school and even beat in high school go on to be Division I All-Americans. And I just didn't think I would ever have what it took. And I was like, man, I'm already more successful at jiu-jitsu. Like, I'll just stick with doing that, you know? So for me, it's a life lesson that I, you know, got a chance to tell all of them, as well as, you know, teach my current kids now and not, like, you know, don't ever not believe in yourself. All right. Like, I wish I had given myself at least, even if it panned out to nothing, I wish that I had given myself that, you know, opportunity and experience to have wrestled in college and just, you know, see where I might've been able to take that. I don't necessarily regret my decision. I was able to accomplish a lot in jiu-jitsu and grappling, but I doubted myself then. I have no doubt now that I would have done well. Like, exactly how well I would have done or what accomplishments I would have had, we'll never know, unfortunately. But I do believe I would have done well. So I get a chance to tell them, like, you know, like the other life lesson about that I, you know, preach to them a lot is, like, you know, I think our society today has a really warped view of what humility really is. And I think a lot of people confuse humility and weakness. And so this is a story, you know, about that. You know, I didn't have the vulnerability to talk to anyone about the way I was feeling about wrestling in college either. You know, it's not that there weren't people that I couldn't talk to. It's that I didn't have the vulnerability, because I thought that made me look weak. You know, hey, here are my thoughts. You know, I didn't feel like I could go to my parents. I didn't feel like I could go to my wrestling coach, anybody. And that is just a societal cultural problem, you know, where it was just like, you know what, I like if I had gone and I guarantee if I had gone and sat down with my wrestling coach for 30 minutes and told him, hey, I don't feel like I have what it takes to wrestle in college. You know, like this is how what do you think or what not? I guarantee you he would have probably tried to change my way of thinking. He would have probably guided me to believe in myself. It was like, you know what, let's go give it a shot. And if it doesn't pan out for, you know, such and such amount of time or whatever we decide on or whatnot, like, then go pursue jiu-jitsu, which will always be there, you know? And so I didn't have the vulnerability. I don't think I was ever properly taught what it meant to be vulnerable and the difference between humility and weakness. Because actually thinking that if I, you know, expressed that was how I was feeling about myself, I thought that was what weakness was, whereas that would have been humility. And what I actually did was weakness.
Yeah.
I didn't open up. I wasn't vulnerable about that. And therefore, I was weaker, quote unquote, in the long run. Again, I don't necessarily regret my decision, but I do look back on it as like, you know what, this is a very, very good, valid teaching point to all of my students. You know, one, don't ever not believe in yourself. All right. And the flip side of that, you know, is like, don't ever not believe in yourself, but don't have a sense of entitlement either, you know. Like, I mean, I think it's terrible advice. You know, have you ever told like, or ever been told you can be whatever you want?
Yeah.
No, I mean, unfortunately, that's just not the real reality of things or whatnot. Because that communicates just because you want it, you get to be it. All right. So let's qualify it. All right. You know, you can be whatever you want to be as long as you work hard for it. No.
Correct. Yeah.
No. Unfortunately, that's not true either. You could work as, you know, like what working hard does, all right, is gives yourself the best chance at accomplishing and being whatever it is that you want to accomplish or be, all right? But that's just not the way the world works. And if you have like when those things don't play out and don't pan out or whatnot, then you start finding and looking for excuses as to why they aren't, as opposed to just, you know what, hey, this is the real reality. Now it's time to move. I gave it my best shot. Now it's time to move on, you know? So I teach you, don't not believe in yourself. This is the difference between humility and weakness or whatnot. And we also can't approach things with a sense of entitlement either. You can't be whatever you want to be just because you want to be it or whatnot. And you know what? It doesn't, like, the real world doesn't always work out that way either. Even if you work hard for it, that doesn't even necessarily, it gives you the best chance, you know, like if you want to go get, you know, that AGF Tulsa Nationals gold medal, right? You're going to train hard. Just because you train hard, does that mean you're going to get it? Nope.
Correct. I see what you said.
Yeah. I mean, there are things even out of your control. Like, you don't know how, you don't know who's going to be your referee that day. You don't know how, you know, the job they might do. You don't know, you might get sick. That there are things out of your control. You could work as hard. You could be well-deserved. And that just maybe is not, you know, the cards life is going to deal with, you know, deal you. And you need to be able to accept, you know what, I gave my best shot. I had, you know, I worked hard for it, you know, and then you start to gain a sense of like, you know what, that's what it means by what, like, it's not the end result necessarily that always matters, but it's the, what did I gain from the experience that really helps or whatnot. And if you have that kind of mindset, then I truly believe you will be as successful as possible with the, you know, like the potential that the, you know, the world and reality gives you in your life. And you will be a lot more, you will be happier, but more importantly, you will be fulfilled. We seek, and I tell my kids this all the time, we seek fulfillment and purpose over happiness.
Yeah. And when you made that decision to go from wrestling to jiu-jitsu only, and you started martial arts when you were younger, and you said you wanted to teach as you were older, did you have the vision to open your own school, do this for a living, and be in the martial arts for a business and for a living? Is that, I mean, or did you want to pursue, you said, like you said, you fought MMA for 5 years. Did you want to be MMA kingpin? What was your thought mentality there?
You know, I went through a lot of different mentalities throughout my martial arts journey and career. And having started so young, like at 4 years old, like I didn't have any idea why. I didn't even know why I was there. I was there because my dad told me to be there. And that's why I was there. So starting, you know, young off, like, you know, was it always my dream to own a martial arts school? No. Was it always my dream to be a world champion? Nope. Was it always my dream to, you know, pursue professional fighting and, you know, try to be, you know, as go as far along? No, none of that. You know, I had zero goal. To be honest, I didn't like martial arts and wrestling when I was a kid. And I tell my kids this all the time too, or whatnot. Like, I probably spent the years from, you know, 4 to 10 wanting to quit every single day. I want to be, yeah, exactly. You know, my father, and this is my experience, you know, my father forced me to go. I didn't have a choice. I tried to play sick and hide underneath the bed one day. Well, my dad, like, you know, I think I was 6 at the time. My dad is a doctor. So that wasn't well thought out, you know, trying to play sick, because he could tell, you know, he's a doctor. He was like, nah, you're fine, we're going, you know. He took the stance. He's like, you know, if you know, it wasn't a stance of like, you know what, as long as we're paying for this, you're going to go. It was a stance of like, you've started this, you're going to finish, you know, like whatever time frame that we had, set forth, what you're going to see it through. He never let me quit anything. If I started a sport, and I played just about every sport you could imagine beyond hockey and basketball. I did track, I did baseball, I was on a swim team. What else? I played football for a number of years. That's actually what I wanted to be when I was a kid, when I was like, 10, 11, 12 or whatnot. I wanted to play strong safety for the Green Bay Packers. That's what I really wanted to do with my life. And then I got to I was a sophomore in high school, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like 5'5", 130 pounds or whatnot. Like, playing football is probably not in the cards for me, especially, but so
how about the mixed martial arts side of it though? Did you pursue that in order to just do something after grappling, or did you want to make money, or what was the mentality for fighting MMA?
Well, at some certain point in time, it was I just went through different phases, I went through a phase of wanting to quit, not having that choice, and I'm still, kind of like amazed and shocked today at the number of people that would say like, well, I don't want him to do it if he doesn't want to do it or whatnot. I'm like, dude, he's 7. Like, he's going to, he should be doing whatever it is you tell him to do,
Yeah.
Teach them at least the discipline to see it through, I got to a certain point, then I started having success with wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. I started winning more and I liked it more. I was like, well, let's see how far we can push this, all of a sudden, because I just never stopped. I eventually had my moment where it just clicked, and I saw like, man, I think I've got what it takes to be a state champion. Let's shoot for that. And I gave it everything I had, fell a little short. Felt like I had I really felt like I was pretty close to a big breakthrough in combining my wrestling with my jiu-jitsu grappling game. And I was like, well, let's see just how far we can take that, it really became at some certain point in time, I was just like, I almost just couldn't stop, because I started to identify myself as like, by medals, and it was just like, man, I've spent all this time doing this, what if I never, accomplish anything medal wise out of it? So I just never, ever stopped, and I never stopped, and I never stopped. And I finally did do that. I won my first world title, as a purple belt. And then I would, saw I could do it as a brown belt, and I saw I could do it as a black belt. And it was like, you know what, let's see how, cause for me, whether I finish first or finish last, I really like, I really like knowing where I stand. And so for me, it was like, well, let's see, based on what I've been able to accomplish here, let's see how far I can take this in real actual fighting, or as close as we can be with, professional mixed martial arts. And so it was just like, it was one more test, of myself or whatnot. And that was after I'd kind of, I kind of gotten over defining myself by medals. And, it's like, all right, let's pursue professional fighting now, just to see where I stand, in the world or whatnot,
Have you been in any street altercations before, or was the cage your first major fist fight?
Cage was my first major fist fight. I had some very, very light skirmishes when I was in high school, but that comes mainly from having wrestled as long as I did, and how tough I would there's another funny story. I was in 8th grade, and I went out for wrestling, or I was in 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade. And I went out for wrestling, obviously. And I was not like I said, I'm by nature an introvert, which martial arts helped me with a lot. There are probably some people like, man, that guy never shuts up. I can't imagine that he's an introvert. I'm actually an introvert by nature. And I didn't used to like confrontation. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've put that behind me, but I really didn't like confrontation. So in my middle school, no one knew who I was, well, there was this big, bully that we had in 7th grade. And, he was just known for being really intense, mean, he could get in people's faces. He could bark at them, yada, and really scare a lot of people. And, a lot of people did what he said just because he was, like that. And, so he went out for the wrestling team. We happened to be at the same weight class. And I mean, of course, I'd been wrestling at that time, 6, 7, 8 years. So I mopped the mat with his face, to me, I thought nothing of it. It was just this person's never done this before, and I've been doing this a long time. Of course, I didn't think anything of it. I walked in the next day to school. I started walking to my locker, and I kid you not, it was like a parting of the Red Sea, and everyone was turned, looking at me, pointing, whispering, and I didn't have many friends, in middle school and high school, so I went into class, I sat down to some, next to some of the kids that I knew, and I was like, well, what's going on? They're like, oh my gosh, you beat up so-and-so, yada. I was like, well, I beat him in a wrestling match. I've been doing that a long time. And they, like, no one could believe it. No one, like even like probably a good another couple of weeks, no one believed I was as tough as everyone saw and was saying I was because of what they saw in the wrestling room, you know? And so I just, you know, like for me, that was, you know, really, really funny. That, you know, and then, and from that moment on, like, I never had to, you know, like everyone started, you know, like people started coming to duels. They would actually watch me wrestle live. It was like, wow, this kid really is as tough as everyone is saying he is. And so it pretty much kind of just became understood. I was just kind of like, I was that kid that was like, that's the kid you don't screw with, you know? Yeah. I had a couple of times, like, you know, one time the vice principal came running out from the front office because I dropped my bag and I set it on the concrete or whatnot as this kid was getting in my face. And I told him twice, I was like, you know, I pretty much told him, back up, you know, like I've got no problem, you know, taking you out right here now. The vice principal ran out and ran and grabbed the kid or whatnot. And they sat him down. They're like, do you have any idea who it was that you were about to pick a fight with, you know? And, you know, he, you know, had, you know, a lot of, like, you know, blustery, ignorant things to say, which is just, you know, kind of the way of the world. But I like my first actual fist fight was, you know, yeah, in the cage. And it was, you know, for me, it was at that point in time, it was, you know, really a true test of self. Like, you know, where do I really stand, you know, in the complete realm of martial arts in the world. And that was my passion for professional fighting.
Awesome. Do you have any? I see that you train with UFC fighter Ryan Hall. Like we were kind of shouting out to him earlier. He brought you out when I think he had just won the Ultimate Fighter. You said before, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He hadn't won it yet. He was in the finals. He just couldn't talk about it yet.
And you guys, again, kind of polar opposites in terms of grappling. He's definitely different there, but it seems like an awesome dynamic duo that you guys would train together. I assume you guys have become friends. And how often you know, besides this Corona quarantine, how often are you guys training?
I seem to make it up there at least, you know, 2 times a year, if not more. Kind of depends a lot on his fight schedule as well. I've definitely, you know, had the honor and opportunity to go out there and help him train for some of his training camps, you know. But as you know, he has some difficulty getting fights, which is very unfortunate because, I mean, that kid, or I say kid, sorry. I mean, Ryan is ready, and in my opinion, he has all the necessary tools right now to be holding that UFC featherweight belt. You know, so yeah, like, I mean, he is, you know, the real deal, and what he has become, you know, he has influenced me and my martial arts journey a lot, especially when it comes to mixed martial arts. And he just, you know, like one of the things that I've always, like, you know, really respect, he always seems to be asking the right questions, you know, and you know, how is this going to fit, you know, what is the efficacy, you know, of said move or whatnot, where does this fit into the strategy, does this fit into my strategy, you know, as opposed to being, you know, like really limited by, you know, well, the rules, you know, like, I mean, again, we play within the sandbox of the rules give us or whatnot, you know, but when it always came to, like, overall martial arts and fighting, he was always asking the right questions and seeking out the knowledge that he needed. And you know, man, it's really impressive to see, you know, 1, his evolution, and 2, how far he's come, and 3, the martial artist that he is today. Because, like, he especially, you know, from the jiu-jitsu background, he had he was, you know, his reputation was really kind of known for being, you know, very, very dangerous, you know, off of his back. And don't get me wrong, he still is, but I'm here to tell you today, man, that guy, he's dangerous from everywhere. He is dangerous striking. He is dangerous wrestling. He has dangerous everything. And there, there's no one position where you like, you know, training with him, there's no one position where I ever feel like I have the advantage anymore. I mean, his striking is just, you know, phenomenal. His wrestling is fantastic. And of course, his ground game is just like, you know, I mean, man, finally got that takedown or whatnot. Okay, now what am I? Oh, I'm facing Ryan's ground game. Son of a.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's just like, I mean, there's no one aspect where I feel like he's, you know, doesn't have a really, you know, at least a place where he can hold his own and or a very clear, significant, you know, advantage. And like I said, I truly believe he's got all the skills that it takes right now to be holding that UFC featherweight belt. And so, man, as a friend of his and get, like being, as well as a fan and getting to watch his evolution, I absolutely 100% hope he gets that shot and gets a chance to showcase that for the world.
Yeah, I've always been a fan. I had him in my school in 2009. I mean, what he was doing, he was triangling everybody when he was a purple belt. I was watching him
Yeah.
then. And then, I mean, just even his DVDs, I think his DVDs are like 50-50, deep half, back, triangles. I mean, just in his DVDs alone, he's got a heck of a game, Of course, everyone is not just a DVD set that they put out, Well, does that put you fought up to the point of what, the LFA title, legacy fighting title? I know coincidentally same as your name as your school, but which is the main feeder league to the UFC.
Yeah.
And then you retired after that. Would that be accurate time frame?
Yes. Yeah. We like that fight, had the potential, to really jumpstart, my career, perhaps get into the UFC had I won that fight. And it wasn't meant to be. And I was back into this, corner of, having a choice of like, man, like, one, how secure, financially, with a financial income and the position I was in, like, and I started asking myself, what's this really look like long term, so yeah, I was like, I think the time is right. I think it's, the time is now to, open up a martial arts academy and do that, so yeah, I fought for the LFA featherweight title, and I lost to a really tough guy named Kevin Aguilar. And in my career, that is I'd never faced anyone that hit that hit as hard as he does. And he did go on to be in the UFC, and I believe still is currently.
He just fought in New Zealand.
Fighter. What's that?
Yeah, he just fought in New Zealand.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's one of my purple belts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. He's my first affiliate in Longview, Texas, where Derek Krantz trains and Brant Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Team 515. Yeah, they were my very first affiliate, and then Derek got all of his ranks through me. Kevin has got his blue and purple from me.
Nice.
Yeah, Kevin definitely more of a striker. He's hard to keep down. I mean, he's very hard to keep down.
I'll attest to that as well. But man, like, I mean, I still watch that knockout that he had on Damon Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm so glad that wasn't me.
Yeah. I was there at that one, so I cornered him at that one. Yeah, I cornered him in that fight.
Oh, yeah?
Damon, yeah,
man.
Derek,
like I said,
legacy fights. Derek fought multiple times for legacy fight. Fought for 55 and 70. Kevin stayed at 45. Cornered him in those fights. Yeah, definitely exciting. So, do you have any more competition in you, jiu-jitsu wise? You can hit the master division. We're all waiting here, Justin. We're all waiting.
Right. Well, that brings to probably a whole nother podcast. Being the competitor that I was, and I love it. I love putting it all on the line. I love, putting myself in those situations, just, like, hey, here's another puzzle. Let's see if I can come out on top, so like, it's hard for me to say that I'm, retired for good and I'll never return. Like, I don't necessarily want to use like such absolute statements and words like never. There are a couple different things, that really play into that, like, first of all, like, making sure that legacy martial arts is at a place where if I did ever want to return to like professional mixed martial arts, making sure that like, legacy martial arts is in a place where it can kind of stand alone and I can take some of my hands off that wheel to make sure that it doesn't suffer from because legacy martial arts really is the end game. So making sure that that's not suffering while I, pursue the training that I need to pursue to be able to fight again. So it's very difficult to say. I have no plans, nothing lined up.
What about just jiu-jitsu?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like I said, like as I sit here right now, I have no plans to return to professional fighting. but I won't say never. When it comes to professional grappling, that is a real philosophical question and debate, which, like I said, we could spend a whole nother podcast on, because I feel very, very strongly about the rules and just the current state of jiu-jitsu, where it's at right now. I, one, don't agree with it. Two, I'm not happy about it. And three, I don't believe it really evolves grapplers to be well-rounded martial artists from the grappling perspective. I don't think the evolution of our art right now is really and the way the rules are set are really molding people to more seamlessly transition that game to professional fighting, you know, and or even just self-defense for a lot of different reasons. And you know, I've competed in, you know, like some of the highest level forms of all the rule sets out there. I've done sub only no time, or I've done sub only 20 minutes. I've done sub only 10 minutes. I've done fight. I held the fight to win belt for a while. Of course, you know, I did IBJJF for goodness, like 10 years. I did ADCC. I'm trying to think of like all the other different rule sets I've competed in. You know, I've done a number of different pro divisions where, you know, to me, it's one of the biggest downfalls of our sport is the fact that there's like, you know, 20, you know, there's more than 20, there's like 20, you know, zillion different rule sets out there, all of which that, you know, make you have to adapt, you know, and sometimes people like to make the argument like, you know, oh, that's good, like you're having to work on new skills now or whatnot. I respectfully disagree. I think it really waters down the sport, because you will always have like extremists like, you know, well, I'm only going to do EBI, or I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do that or whatnot, you know? Whereas like if everyone was doing the same thing, the talent pool increases. And that's a very, very real thing, and a very real factor that I think often gets, you know, left out. And I don't think that we do a good job of organizing, you know, a true ranking system or anything like that. You know, to me, I almost look at it like, so, and perhaps there's something I'm missing, and perhaps this isn't the solution. I don't know, but I'm just like, wrestling has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years or whatnot, and how's the model they have, other than the actual rules of the grappling that's happening out there or whatnot, which one need to be fixed as well. But like, why can't we run that same model as an organized sport? To me, I don't see any reason why not. And so that's just, you know, that's something I feel very passionately about. But I'm done competing in these organizations and rule sets that I just don't philosophically agree with, in my own opinion. And I don't think that like sub only, you know, and again, some of this you have to look at it in theory, you know, like, you know, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard to submit someone who goes out there and is going to ball up and do this, you know? And theoretically, they have that ability to do that without really being punished severely enough for it through points, you know? So what do points do? Points put the proper burden of movement on the correct person if they're done correctly. And if you have the proper burden of movement, then action will be forced to be created. And action is what, one, we're striving for. Two, is entertaining and what people want to see. You know, three, as long as it's put on the correct person, you will continue to drive the evolution as close as you can towards seamlessly being integrated into like professional mixed martial arts, you know? So it's not, I would never call out any one athlete, because it's not the athlete's fault right now. It's the rules fault. And the athletes are going to do what they have to do to win within said rule set, you know? Like, no, all rule sets will fall short, but man, some of the ones, right, I'm not entirely sure, but to me, it almost seems like it kind of started with advantages, you know? When we started giving advantages, like, you know, these like almost, you know, like, you know, points for like, you know, missing a free throw, but hitting the rim, if you will. I don't agree with advantage points. You know,
I like that.
And like I said, I could go on and on and on. You know, I could talk for the next 2.5 hours about that or whatnot, you know, because I just, you know, so for me, like I'd love to return to professional grappling, you know, on a platform with a rule set that I agree with, you know, like, I think probably one of the most exciting tournaments that I was ever a part of, that really, really speaks, you know, it was so close in a lot of ways. And then they kind of like, you know, botched it up. And then, you know, some of the political things that happened in the tournament as well are very unfortunate. But one of the, probably one of the most exciting tournaments I was ever involved in was something called the Ultimate Absolute 2, the light.
Oh, yeah.
the lightweight version. And that was a points only tournament. And man, like some of the matches that day and the match and all the crazy, I mean, probably one of the most intense, craziest scrambles of my entire career was when I hit my stack pass into my truck entry and put Samuel Braga in a calf slicer. Made a mistake there, which I now know better now and can teach people today, where he was able to unwrap my arm, put me in an arm bar, so I had a calf slicer submission on him while he had me in an arm bar. Neither, both of us refusing to tap. Both of us fighting through it. We both worked through it. We eventually had to let go of each other's submissions or whatnot, getting up in the middle of the match, high-fiving each other, fist bumping and giving props to each other. The crowd loved it. The crowd was going wild. Eddie Bravo was in the crowd, yelling and screaming, coaching tips at me, which I thought was hilarious too. I mean, everyone was just so into it. It was like, because it was a points only system, no advantages, and the points did a pretty good job of putting the proper burden of movement where it goes. Of course, it needed, a couple other special tweaks that I believe, take it to the next level, but like I said, that was probably one of the most fun jiu-jitsu tournaments I was ever involved in.
I loved it. I think it's on YouTube. They got the heavyweight version and the lightweight. I remember you being in that. That's another calf slicer memory I got of you. Yeah, don't reach with the inside arm, right? To get that arm bar. Yeah.
Yeah,
and if you do it, it's like rear naked choke kind of grip, so it blocks your.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buchecha was in the heavyweight one. There was all kinds of dudes in that. I think also that format wasn't just a points format, not to get down the rules journey, but I mean, it was also the dudes in there. I mean, everybody in there was there was no stallers in that.
No. Well, and I mean, that dude, the division I was in, had, Celsinho, who I ended up facing in the finals. Ryan Hall was in that division. Gary Tona was in that division. Henan Borges was in that division. Bruno Malfacine was in that division. Magno Gama, who I faced in the
Was there money?
Yeah. So there was 10,000 to win, 3,000 a second, and I think 1,000 or 2,000 a third. And then they also
that plays a factor in dudes being aggressive compared to an IBJJF tournament where it's just a medal.
I don't think it plays much of a factor. If anything played a bigger factor, the other thing that they did do to try to incentivize it was every submission that you won by, you got $1,000. So, I think that maybe helped. But to be really honest, I don't think that it plays with more action. I think the ultimate goal is to win. And if I win, no matter what, I get $10,000. You have the chance to walk away with 14 max if you sub your way through it. But dude, 10 grand, I'm going to play, I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do to keep winning, the rounds that I need to win to get through the tournament or whatnot. So I personally don't feel like it really plays into that at all. I think, guys are going to go out there and do what they've got to do.
I got you. I always did think the money was a little bit of an incentive, though, to go. At least not to – how about this? Maybe at least not to lose. Let's say that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a moment where, I've got, Braga in that calf slicer, and he's got me in the arm bar, and you've got Ricardo doing the commentating along with Scotty from on the mat during that match. And there was a moment where they're like, man, dude, these guys are just not tapping. And they're like, man, with $1,000 on the line, no one wants to tap, you know?
I talked to Samuel Braga the other day on Facebook. I'm supposed to do a podcast with him as well.
Oh, nice, man. I will tell you what, I gained a whole new level of respect for the toughness of that guy after our match. Cause there was a moment in time where in overtime where I had a thought to myself in the middle. I was like, man, how is this guy still hanging? After the calf slicer I put him through, I mean, the arm bar, don't get me wrong, was tough too, but my calf slicer was so deep. And I just remember man, this is one tough dude.
Yeah. And there's a couple people like that are out there that I think that some of today's generation don't know their badassery, dude. I mean, Samuel, a lot of people, and including I think himself, if I'm correct, make him the inventor of the Berimbolo and not the Mendez and Miao brothers. I believe he claims to have invented the bolo and has video of it.
Really?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. I do remember he played a lot of that, upside down, inverting kind of guard game for sure.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting. I'll talk to him more about it on that podcast.
I'll be listening.
It's a pretty big day today. My son has been competing, doing jiu-jitsu. He's a white belt. Speaking of being a leader, I believe that he should be an example to others. He's a black belt son. He's he's going to get his gray belt. We have a gray belt curriculum. And he was right on the verge. He had a little bit of a gap. He played fall baseball. And then we started back at it this year, started competing. He was gi first place and NoGi third place overall for the year 2019 in AGF.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're ready to give him his gray belt. And then the quarantine happened.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so, but there's a few things on the curriculum that I really wanted him to have. Just like, blue and gray for me are the most important. If there's a curriculum past that, whatever, but for jiu-jitsu, some people don't have it past that, especially at the adult ranks. They don't have a curriculum for purple, brown, or black, but it's a generalized testing sometimes. But anyways, I do for gray and blue, and I wanted him to be the example and wanted him to not have to go back and correct things later on that he should have. Because I tell people that you can win the world championships with blue belt jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Like Roderick Gracie, in my opinion, has blue belt jiu-jitsu, but done at the black belt level, right? Like that way. And so he is complete. We've done a bunch of videos. I don't know if you've seen this on Instagram and YouTube, stuff like that. We've done a bunch of kids videos with him. And so he's completed them all. He's done all his techniques. And as soon as we're done with this, I'm about to go put my gi on, go in the garage, and he's going to get his gray belt.
Dude, that'll be awesome. Does he know yet?
Yeah, he knows. He's been working real hard, and there's a few where, like, my daughter, she's kind of like, I got to drag her to class sometimes. And sometimes she'll want to go. But there's a certain techniques where him and I can play and have fun and he can do on me. And then there's some where he just has to do on someone his own size.
Absolutely.
And she's still a head taller than him and, 2.5 year difference. But so there were some times where we had to wait for her to do certain things, and we had fun with the videos and stuff and with my association. And so we're real excited, to do this. We're going to go Facebook Live.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way. Like, I did it before. I gave him some stripes before Facebook Live, and it's like, this is the only way right now that they can get recognition is literally through social media and letting the kids see he doesn't have social media. He's 8. But it's like they can see the likes. They can see people comment. And me, having been to 21 countries because of jiu-jitsu, right? I travel a lot. It's like state where you're from. Hey, I'm Justin from Oklahoma. Hey, I'm Bob from England. Hey, I'm so-and-so from Australia, So I'm like, look, man, we look at the globe. We look at the map. And I'm like, this guy's over here. I know him because, this and that. And so they can see a lot of love and at least feel a little bit special. Instead of just privately in the garage with their dad.
Right? Man, congratulations to him. It's going to be awesome. Does he know it's going to be like right now today? Or does he just have an idea that it's coming?
No, we talked about it today.
Cool.
Yeah. We videotaped this weekend and we did some extra videos and, you ready to test, because I want to be able to call out the moves and him to be able to do them. I want him to be the example when a kid says, well, how do I get out of the triangle? I want him to know exactly verbatim, step by step, how we're supposed to get out of the triangle at the gray belt level. You know what I mean? And so, especially being the coach's son, I feel like there's some pressure on him sometimes, as a black belt son. And then we just, as parents, coaches, we want him to be good.
Yeah.
And so, you ever notice that sometimes the black belts kids tend to be better than everyone else's kids when you go out there, not just students, but like personal kids, And so my coach right now is Chris Brennan.
Yeah.
And his kids are phenomenal. I'm saying, for example, what I mean? And so, anyways, but I just wanted to put him in that leadership position by just knowing the techniques really well. I also see a lot of mistakes by coaches of giving kids ranks purely through attendance, purely through aggression or wrestling. You know, I'm like, this is not wrestling. There is parts of it that translate over, but you know, so there's many factors, as you know, with jiu-jitsu. And so just by giving the knowledge, one, it helps with the knowledge in the jiu-jitsu. It helps with the technique, but also it naturally puts him in that leadership positions like you've been talking about. You know, when he can help other people, he can help the class, walk around and correct something. He can be asked a question and know the answer. So I really like that aspect for sure.
That's awesome. I love hearing it.
Yeah. And we're going to have him listen to, and my daughter too, listen to a couple of the guys that you mentioned, because they'll watch this video. We have nothing else to do, so I'll make them watch this video. And listen to some of the podcasts of the guys that you've mentioned as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that, you know, getting a chance to listen to those that have come before them. And, you know, like that's the way that it should be, you know, and like, I hope that like, you know, one, you know, knowing the moves and being able to pass that down is very important, you know? And so I love that aspect or whatnot, you know, and as he does that, he'll also be able, you know, like once he has more and more and more experiences, life experiences, he'll be able to pass on, you know, through this art. He'll even be able to pass on to those coming after him, his own life experiences as well, kind of like I'm doing and we're doing right now.
Yes, for sure. Well, so I'm about to go make them lunch and go do that. Do you have any last minute shout outs, websites, social media, any people, anything like that? Anything? Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, man, you know, just be sure to, you know, follow us, check out all that we're doing. You know, we post constantly on our Legacy Martial Arts Instagram as well as Facebook. So you can find us on Instagram at legacy.martialarts. And then we are on Facebook at facebook.com/legacymartialarts.lma. And of course, you can find me. I'm on Instagram as DarthRader86, and as well as Facebook at facebook.com/DarthRader86. So yeah, we post constantly, you know, frequent updates of all that we're doing. You can, you know, tune in and see some of the stuff that we're up to.
Thank you, sir. As a personal note, I've always been a fan of your grappling. I love the teaching style. For me, so you're cemented in as one of the pioneer American grapplers out there, black belt level titles. I think you're one of America's greatest, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I got one more shout out. I'd like to throw especially, you know, to those of us from Oklahoma, I'd like to throw in a shout out to AGF as being like one of the only tournament circuits that comes through Oklahoma, and by far, bar none, the best that comes through Oklahoma as well. And so thank you again, and thank you for this opportunity, and keep doing big things for our sport.
I will try as soon as they give us the green light to run tournaments again.
Yes,
I figure it's going to be a little bit, you know, they're going to have to let people get in phases back to society. Then they're going to have people fully training again, and then we'll have to have the tournaments, you know, but hopefully there doesn't come a second phase of lockdowns or anything like that, you know.
Hoping.
All right, brother. God bless you. Stay safe.
Hey, you too, man. Thank you again. Talk to you soon.
All right, ciao.
Later.